Okay, thank you for attending. This is Noah, the presenter from Shortcuts, one of the educators here. And today we're going to be looking at online booking and working with Spotlight through Shortcuts. So, what is Spotlight? It is the ability to send customer surveys and even respond to customer surveys or share those surveys on your webpage. So if you're new to the presentations, if you've never been here before, there's a few things you should know. So let's go ahead and get started. So every Monday we do an introductory session for a particular feature in Shortcuts. So these are things that absolutely every salon or spa or barbershop that uses the software should know about. So this presentation, it's about 30 minutes. We're going to allow some extra time at the end to take some questions. My microphone is turned on, of course. Everybody else has been muted, but you do have the ability to ask questions on your toolbar. It should be on the right side of the screen, the ability to ask me a question. We will take some questions during the presentation, but if you can save it for the end, please do so. And of course, if you have any follow-up questions, you can always reach us on our Facebook page. So we do check that, we do get back to you. Now, we are recording this presentation, so if you're unable to attend, don't worry, we will send you a link and we'll make that available a little bit later today. So today, what are we talking about? So we're looking at two specific features in Shortcuts. Your console settings, which is going to control your online booking, and Spotlight. These are your ratings and reviews. So how do you connect these? How do you work with them? How do you set up your shortcut system if you've never had an online appointment, if you've never used any of those online features? How exactly does that work? So we're actually going to go through both of that, setting up your online booking as well as setting up surveys if you're not already using them. So the first thing we want to do is if you've never used online booking in Shortcuts, if you've sort of been sitting on the fence and more your customers are asking you, is there any way we can make an appointment on our phone or from our home computer so that we don't always have to call or show up in person? You can absolutely enable those online features in Shortcuts. And there's always a few things that you want to take care of first. So in Shortcuts, Shortcuts is always synchronizing from several different places. The first place that you want to review, whenever you want to enable certain services for online booking, you want to go to your setup button and to your services screen. And if you notice in the middle column, in the middle of the screen, there's a checkbox series for web. So you don't have to turn on all of your services to be bookable online. So if you're concerned about chemical services, straightening, or color services, and you know those take different amounts of times depending on the length of the hair, on the thickness of the hair, so that there's really not an easy way to just allow online booking for those services. You don't have to enable them. You pick and choose what you want to allow on the web. So in your services screen, there is a little checkbox that says web, and all you have to do is check it on or off to make it available. If you happen to be in the options screen, the screen where you actually tell Shortcuts, what is the default time or what is the default price for this service? In the bottom left-hand corner, there is a little checkbox that says can be booked via web. Checking this box would be the same thing as checking the column that says web. They both activate the same feature. And I'll actually show you, I'll pause this slideshow for a moment and actually show you where these windows are in Shortcuts. So I'll minimize this for a moment. So in your Shortcuts point of sale system, on the bottom right, if you go to Setup, and if you go to the Services button, so these are normally where you have your service categories. Again, right in the middle, this is where you can enable certain services to be bookable via the web. And let's say you're adjusting your time or your price for your service. I'll go to the boys haircut, for example, and I'll go to the details for it. On the bottom left corner, this was that option I was talking about, can be booked via web. Checking that box is the same thing as checking the column that says web. They both do the same thing. Now, just so you know, if you do have a color service or a chemical service, and you're concerned that the customer is going to take more time or less time than they actually need, and you don't want to have any sort of overlap or double booking on your appointment book, something that a number of salons have done is actually create different versions of a service. So, for example, if you're offering a half head highlights, you can actually create a service for half head highlights for short hair or medium length hair. And you can define it. You can say up to the shoulder length hair, for example, and then you can set a default time and price for that because you know, well, approximately for shoulder length hair, I would need 60 minutes or 90 minutes. And then you can create a second service for the half head highlights for long hair. So this is anything past shoulder length. So then you know, okay, for this service, I'm going to need more like 2 hours. So that even if the customer comes in and their hair is a little bit shorter, a little bit longer, you're at least in the ballpark of how much time they need. So just consider that if you're just sitting on the fence and you're concerned about certain chemical services, perhaps create 2 or even 3 versions of the service, short, medium, and long hair. And those can each have their own default time and default price. So that's the first place that you actually tell Shortcuts what services am I going to allow to be bookable online. But just because you enable a service, that's not the only thing that you can enable for online booking. The other thing is you want to make sure that your staff is ready and available for online booking. If you have an apprentice working with you, then you don't necessarily want them to be bookable online. So this is where you can tell Shortcuts certain employees in the employee setup screen can be bookable. You can actually check a box on or off. I'll show you that in a moment. The other thing that helps is if you have multiple services and you have certain technicians, perhaps you have an esthetician that you work with, and perhaps some of your employees do waxing services in addition to hair services, you can actually create what's called a capability in Shortcuts. So by default, there are no capabilities in Shortcuts. Shortcuts doesn't know which employees are allowed to perform any particular service. But as soon as you create a capability, you can label it. In this case, I would create a texture or a treatment category. And then at the bottom center of the screen, I can tell Shortcuts which employee is allowed to perform this service and what are the particular services I'm talking about. So when you do this, it actually synchronizes online. So if a customer goes to choose a treatment service, then Shortcuts will know, oh, only certain employees are allowed to be bookable for this. So let's actually take a look at how to set that up in Shortcuts. So in your Shortcuts window, we're still under this Setup button on the right. Just above your Services button, there's a button that says Capabilities. And again, there are no default capabilities in Shortcuts. We would have to tell Shortcuts what is the category and who's allowed to do it. So perhaps I have an employee that does not do manicures. So we want to make sure that this person does not accidentally get booked for that. So I can create a new category, a new capability on the bottom left, and I will say this is manicure. Once I have a name, then on the bottom center, I'm going to tell Shortcuts what service am I going to limit to certain people. So I'm going to say the manicure, and I will add that. So once I tell Shortcuts which service I'm going to limit it to, I'll add it to my list, and then I'll press done. And Shortcuts will remind me, okay, you have a category and a service. Who's allowed to perform that service? This is where I would press employee and choose the specific employees that are allowed to perform that service. Anybody that's not on the list will not be available to take that appointment online or even in person. So if your salon is going to move to online booking and you want to make precisely sure that certain people are booked for certain services, set a capability for that. Now, a moment ago, I mentioned that you can even tell Shortcuts if you do not want to include a particular person at all for online booking, you can actually do that. Under Setup, Employees, any employee that you have here, in the center of the screen, near the bottom, there's actually a little checkbox where it says appointment book, what position they are. So you can have an employee available on the appointment book, an assistant, a junior stylist, for example. They should be on the appointment book. However, I don't want customers making appointments with them online. So I can uncheck available for online booking. So those employees won't show up online. So you can set your services, you can set your capabilities, and you can set your staff for online booking. So again, if you're not using that feature in Shortcuts, you now have the first few steps to get started. So employees and services, those are important for online booking. But of course, there's a third thing that every salon, every spa, every barbershop needs to have. And that's the ability to recognize what your actual open hours are, what your schedules are like. So again, in Shortcuts, if you've entered your employee schedules, all the better. So that way your online booking is accurate for certain days, for certain times. The further you can schedule your staff, the better it is for your business. Ideally, we want to have your staff scheduled in for the next 3 or 4 months because you can potentially give customers the ability to book an appointment 2 or 3 months out. So as long as your employee schedules are entered for at least that amount of time, you should be fine. So always make sure to enter your staff schedules. But what about your business hours? If you're changing business hours because of the holiday or because it's back to school season or for whatever reason, if you go to Setup Configuration and on the left side, you go to the General button on the bottom left corner, you can go to Business, and we're using our Sharky's test database, but you can see you can set your business hours here. So online booking will actually recognize your business hours as well as your staff schedules. So if you're extending your hours for the summer or changing your hours for a holiday, go ahead and change it here. That way online booking is accurate as well. So now that you've made a few changes in Shortcuts, whether it's for your services, what staff members are allowed for online booking, then you need to be able to configure your settings online. So what is it that the customer sees when they go online and they make an appointment? How does that all work? And this is where you go to a page called the Shortcuts console. Now, hopefully most of you are familiar with this page. It's a website. You don't have to be on the Shortcuts computer, the main system. You can actually start to set up your console settings at home. So you would go to console.shortcutsoftware.com and you would log in with your email and password. If you don't know what these are or you've never used it, just let us know or let the help desk know and we can help you retrieve that. So once you're in there, there's 2 things that you want to make sure you configure. Those are your company settings and those are your site settings. What the company settings control are what are the information, what are the instructions that the customer is going to see when they go to your online booking page. So if you want to leave them special instructions, such as if when the customer makes an appointment, they get an automatic email to confirm what day and time they're coming in. In that email, you can customize the message to say, if this is your first visit, please plan to arrive 10 or 15 minutes early. Or we have parking located on a certain street, or whatever piece of information that is, you would actually adjust that in company settings. Now, what site settings controls is what are the specific contact details for your salon? Do you have a certain phone number? Do you have a certain address? Do you have a fax number? Do you have other contact details for Facebook, for example, or Instagram, pages like that? So I'll pause for just a moment and I'll show you what that page looks like in real life. So I was working with Emmy Hair recently and I was helping them with their settings. So company settings. This is where you can put in a company logo and again where you put in the instructions for what does the customer see when they're making an appointment and when they get an email to confirm their appointment, what that message should be. Now, any changes that you make in the console, once you save them, those changes happen in real time. So I'll give you an example. So this is the actual Emmy Hair online booking page. And I hope I spelled that correctly. Yes, so their house colors, they're they're very they're very stark. They're black and white. So their online booking page is very clean. It has their company logo that comes up from company settings, and it has their service menu available, what services specifically they allow, and even with which staff members can they do this. Now, if Emmy Hair decides, well, I perhaps I want to change the background or change my logo, they can absolutely do that. And we have what are called themes. What the theme corresponds to are the actual background images, the colors that are on online booking. Now, I would advise using the name themes. You might see some other ones, HW or some other sites. These are works in progress. So don't use these if they pop up because they may disappear the next time you go to online booking. Instead, go to the ones that are named. So I'll go to black wallpaper, for example, and I'll actually save that theme. So once it's saved, if I refresh the Emmy Hair online booking page, they now have a completely new theme. So keep it in mind, if your salon or your spa or your barbershop has a certain house color or look, we probably have a theme that you can go with. So let me change it back to what it was. I believe it was all the way down. It was white gradient. So I changed it back to white gradient and I can refresh the page. So again, your company settings allows you to set your theme and even set a language. Since Emmy Hair is in Canada, they do have some employees on staff that speak French for their Quebec customers. So you can actually offer multiple languages on the very top. And shortcuts will automatically translate the instructions that the customer sees. So if you have a location that perhaps has Spanish speaking customers, you can also offer them multiple languages. So those are all available in your company settings. Now, site settings is where you actually adjust your contact details, your address, your phone number, your availability. So Emmy Hair has their own webpage, Facebook, etc., and their phone number and their address is all here. So if you just want to update some details, you can absolutely do that. Now, if your site has the app, the My Salon app through Shortcuts, the My Spa app, the My Barber app, there is a button in the app that actually says about this salon. This is where Shortcuts actually pulls that information from. So not every site that we work with has the app. You might want to inquire with your account manager if you're interested in the app. It's very easy to set up. It's about 15 minutes, and you can create a custom app for your customers to download, make appointments, have their own profile, and even visit your social media links. So something to think about. So company settings, site settings. Those control what the customer sees and contact information for your salon. Book Me settings is where you can specify how far in advance can a customer make an appointment. So do you want customers to be able to book out 2 months in advance, 3 months in advance, or are you working on a very strict schedule and you don't really want to have your staff booked for more than 30 days in advance? You can absolutely do that. You can adjust when can customers cancel or if they're allowed to cancel online. Would it be better if they called instead? Are you going to give them permission to change their services? So there's a number of things that you can do. This is probably the nicest one. Service booking order. So if you have a salon and you allow customers to do color, chemical, and haircuts, of course, if you're the stylist, you don't want customers accidentally booking the wrong service first. So I would not want a customer booking a haircut before a color service. Instead, we usually do color first, then the haircut. So we can actually tell Shortcuts, okay, this is the priority. Anything that's a hair color is priority number 1. Anything that's a haircut is priority number 2. So even if the customer chooses the service in the wrong order, online booking will put it in the correct order. And Facebook main page. Now, this is important, not necessarily for putting a link for online booking in Facebook, which you can do. What this is designed for is if you're using surveys, spotlight surveys from Shortcuts, and you get a really nice customer survey. This is how we tell Shortcuts, okay, if I really like this survey and I approve it, I want you to post it on this Facebook page. Right? So let's go back to our slideshow. So I actually showed you the specific places in the console that you should go to make those adjustments. So I mentioned that if you want to share surveys in Shortcuts to your Facebook page, your actual company page, you would configure that in the Book Me settings. And I know that most of you might actually have multiple Facebook pages. Perhaps you have your own personal page, you have one for your salon, and you might even have another 2 or 3 or 4 more businesses that you're in charge of. When you're setting the Facebook page in Book Me, there's actually a checklist that says, okay, which specific Facebook page do you want to post to? Well, you're probably not going to post to your personal one, so you can then choose the actual business, the actual salon or spa or barbershop page. So it's not like it just posts to every page. You choose. So what is Spotlight exactly? What are the surveys through Shortcuts? Well, the nice thing about this is something that you can configure, have it set to go automatically, and really you don't have to worry about it. If anything, just visit it once a month to look at customer reviews, and then if they're really nice, you can share them on your business page, or you can put a public comment so you can say, this is one of my favorite customers, read what they had to say. So it allows you to track your customer feedback. Of course, just like any other survey. But unlike any other survey, you're not dependent on the customer having to go to Yelp or a third-party page to leave feedback. You are reaching out directly to the customer after they check out in the point of sale, provided that you have their email, of course. You can see how they're responding from month to month. You can see how you're trending with your business and even how you're trending against industry averages. So how do you configure your spotlight settings? How do you set your frequency? How do you choose how many emails you're going to receive? How do you share your reviews? By generating a website plugin. Well, we could look at a bunch of screenshots, or I'm going to exit out and actually show you how to configure these things. So in the console, there is a spotlight button. Now, at the very top of the screen, there is a green tile that shows you, okay, this is how many surveys you've gotten and how many customers have responded. If you want to look at it, you could press the tile button that says NPS. This stands for Net Promoter Score. Or on the right side of the screen, you can press the reviews button. Both do exactly the same thing. When you're on the review screen, you actually have a few things that you can do. So of course, any customer that left feedback, you can read it. If you like it, you can share it on Facebook. You can publish it on your own webpage, but you also have some additional features that you can do. If I go to the details for this, you'll notice that I have an option for public comment and private comment. So they actually have two different features for these. A public comment, when you write this down, if you choose to publish this review, whether it's on your company webpage or on your Facebook page, this comment will also appear. So it could be something like, this is one of my favorite customers. I love it when this person comes in. Why don't you read what she has to say? So everybody will see that message. Now, if a customer ever gives you a negative review for any reason, that is where private comment comes into play. So you actually have the ability to reach out to a customer to say, well, I'm the owner or I'm the manager of the salon. Let's talk about what happened during your visit and let's see if we can fix it for your next visit. Here's my phone number here. Here's my email. I look forward to working with you. So when you do that, it actually increases the odds that the customer is going to go back and change their score. So rather than just allowing negative reviews to go through, you're actually responding. You're trying to make sure that your net promoter score, the way that your customers are seeing, interacting with your salon, are improving. And we've actually had salons that have turned customer scores around, have turned customer perception around, because they saw that they were genuinely interested in the community they were serving. So keep that in mind. The private comment is a one-time use option. So let's say the customer ignores your message, you do have the ability to delete some of these surveys. You can delete 3 surveys every 6 months. So we want to make sure that it's a completely transparent solution so that you don't just go through and delete everything that you don't agree with. But at the very least, you have the ability to get the customer to change their mind, change their score. And sometimes the customer is just having a bad day. And knowing that you're reaching out to them is enough to make them realize perhaps my review was a little bit harsh. Let me go back and change it. So what exactly is the criteria that we're using? What exactly is this scoring method that we're going with? So the surveys themselves, they're very short and they're in 6 categories. At the very bottom of our spotlight screen, you actually see what the categories are. The customer's overall impression, what they thought of the cleanliness and friendliness and the presentation, the environment that they were in, the service quality they received, any professional advice that your employees gave them, the care. Of course, the big ones, was this a good value for their dollar? And would they recommend you to a friend or family member? Now, we wrote this survey specifically on the feedback that we got from the author of a book called The Ultimate Question 2.0. And he taught us these are the 6 questions you can ask any customer that will guarantee or just about guarantee the maximum results. So that's why the questions are in very specific categories. But then you have to decide, well, how frequently should my customers get these surveys? And this is where your settings come into play. Now, if you're not already using your surveys and shortcuts, the default is a customer will get a survey on their very first visit, but you have the potential to send a survey on every visit or once a month, once every 3 months, twice a year, or once a year. So you have to gauge your customers. Are the clients that you have quick turnaround clients? So if you're a barbershop and you see the same customer every couple of weeks, every 2 or 3 weeks, then you might want to send them a survey every visit. But if you're more of a high-end salon and you potentially go months between seeing a customer, then you might want to space it out to once every 3 months. And then what does Shortcuts do? What does Shortcuts offer to let you know, are the customers getting the surveys? How's the feedback going? So you have 3 potential options that you have. You have a daily notification. So Shortcuts will say, today I sent out 12 surveys, 2 customers responded. That might be overkill, especially if you see hundreds of customers every week or every month. The second one, send contact notification. That's a little more important. At the bottom of the survey, there's a little checkbox that says, I would like to be contacted. I would like to speak with somebody from the salon. So as soon as somebody clicks that checkbox, you're going to be alerted. Now, the last one is the most important one. Send detractor notification. So if when the customer responds to the survey, it's on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the best. A customer that scores you a 9 or a 10, they're considered promoters. They're actually going on Facebook, going on social media saying, hey, I really like this salon. You should take your family there. They're going to love it too. So they're doing the work for you. The people that score you a 7 or an 8, those are considered passives. Perhaps they're new in town. They're trying out different salons. They haven't found a favorite yet. They're not hurting the business, but they're not helping the business by promoting. So perhaps what's going to win them over is if you offer them a coupon for their second visit, or if you send them a survey to let them know that you're really interested in their opinion. The ones you really want to watch out for are the detractors. These are the people that score you 6 or below in any category, because these are the people that historically go out of their way to jump on Yelp, to jump on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and say, I did not like this salon. You should avoid this salon. So as soon as that happens, Shortcuts can send you an email that says, this customer did not like you in these categories. Take a look at their review, and right away, this is your chance to use that private message option and say, I noticed you did not have a favorable experience at my salon. I'm the manager. Here's my phone number. Here's my email. Let's talk about this and let's see if we can fix it for your next visit. And again, by doing that, that sort of resets the survey and gives the customers the ability to go back and change their score. And if they ignore you, if they ignore you reaching out, if they were just being mean and nasty for no particular reason, well, you do have the ability to delete their survey. So just keep it in mind. These settings can really help you stay in contact with your customers and know what they're saying and know when to respond. The last little bit on the right side, my website plugin. So if you have a company webpage, and perhaps on the front of your company webpage or on your services portion, you'd like to share certain customer surveys, certain customer feedback, because they said really glowing things about your staff, about the services you provide. You can actually generate a custom code that shows up on your page, and every time you personally approve a survey, it will show up on your webpage. So this is the default settings. Display 3 reviews at a time out of 20 that I've personally approved, and every 10 seconds, scroll to the next survey. If I press the generate button on the right side, this is the actual code I would put on my company webpage. Now, I can actually give you an example of what that looks like. So, one of our favorite salons on the West Coast, Freddie B, he actually puts his link on his team page so that customers can put a name with a face. And if you notice on the right side of his page, those reviews just popped up. So it has the name of the customer, when they visited, what their star rating was. And if we give this a few seconds, watch what happens to those reviews, those surveys on the right side. They're automatically going to scroll up and let you read the next one. So Freddie, he actually has it set to display about 9 or 10 reviews at a time out of about 40 that he's personally approved, and wait 10 seconds in between each one before it scrolls to the next. So of course, on your website, maybe you don't want to have that much space taken up for your reviews. You just want to display 1 or 2 reviews at a time and wait 5 seconds before going to the next one. You can absolutely change those settings. So you would just change those settings here and then generate that code and paste it on your web page. And then all it does is it waits for you to go look at your reviews, and the ones that you really, really like, you can tell it publish on my website. And almost instantaneously, that review will then pop up on your website, just like it does for Freddie. So hopefully you're using Spotlight. If you've been sitting on the fence, now's when you should activate it, because of course getting feedback is important for yourself, your business, and your staff. So let's go back to the presentation. So I think that made a lot more sense than just looking at screenshots. So make sure to respond to reviews. Even if it's a really good positive review, go ahead and put in a public comment. Let your customers know that you appreciate their business, you really like what they have to say, and perhaps this will convince other people to give your salon a visit. Use the private comment to try to turn those scores around and make sure that you're engaged with the community and that you're showing them their business actually means something to you. So turn them into lifelong customers. So in summary, today we've learned that you can turn your services, make them available for online booking, and you can pick and choose which services, which staff members are available. You can link your surveys to Facebook. You can generate a website plugin. You can respond to them. So if you've been sitting on the fence, if you've not been using your online features and shortcuts, now's the time to get involved with that, because your customers are always interested in more ways of making appointments. And this is one of the easiest ways to do that. So now we're going to open up the floor. So of course, be sure to sign up for more webinars on our webinar page at shortcuts.net. We do record these presentations. We record our standalone webinars as well, and we always make them available. So be sure to check them out. So we have some time for questions. So on the right side of the screen, if you have a question, go ahead and fill it out on the question box, and I'll give it just a moment. And I see we have a couple of attendees that don't have questions. They're just dropping out, and that's okay too. All right. Let's see. Linda, Lisa, John, any questions? I'll give them a moment. And I will check the chat window just in case something went into chat. Oh, I think we don't have any questions today. So if you have any questions after the fact, if you think of anything after the fact, you can absolutely let us know. We do respond to your questions, so you can always ask us via email. We're at education@shortcuts.net. You can ask us on Facebook. We do check that. Or if you're already using your online booking and you've never used your ability to set up your capabilities, who in shortcuts should be allowed to perform services, you can also give our help desk a call. We can help you set it up. So thank you for your time. We will have an uploaded copy of this presentation a little bit later today, and I look forward to seeing you on our next presentation. Have a great day, everybody.